Hello everyone. In today's very first lecture of class 9, we are going to discuss about the object-oriented concept. Alright, before starting of this programming concept, you must understand what is the importance of programming and what exactly a programming. Programming are the set of exactly the rules and the instruction which leads to be design a particular task. In the class 9, we are studying computer application as a subject. And always remember, the programming is a very essential part of the main subject. So you must know how to design the code and you must know the concept and the basic concept related to the programming. So what is exactly a programming? Programmings are the set of rules and the instructions which used to be carried out a further designing of a module. So in this very first slides, we are going to discuss what is programming. Basically, programmings are the process of programs that take input, process and output a desired expected results, which leads to be designed. This programming has been started in the initial time, and that time we are doing the programming in the object-oriented manner. But in nowadays, in the modern time, we have changed the method of designing and it converted into the object-oriented programming language, that is known as OOPS concept. So few important points must be here to represent about what exactly a programming. Basically, it's an act or process of writing a program which leads to be take input, process and gets a desired output. The second important thing is to accomplish any task, we required a programming language. There are certain kind of programming languages are there. Initially, there was low-level programming language, assembly programming language, and now currently we are using high-level programming language. We must ensure that there are certain kind of rules and functionality in each programming language. So initially when we started the programming, there was a mnemonic set of instructions were there. So that is a part of assembly language. Later on we move further and it becomes low-level programming languages like Fortran, COBOL, Pascal. These are the low-level programming. And then later we come to the era of the middle programming language where we have so-called C is the one of them programming language. Nowadays, the entire world is working towards digital words and we are using a high-level programming language. We are working with Java, we're working with C#, we're working with VBNet and we're working with some other programming language. So here we are going to discuss about the concept of Java. And you should remember the Java is an object-oriented programming language. So let's move to the next slides. There is a description about the object-oriented programming language. So before started the object-oriented programming, we must understand the concept of POP. What is exactly a POP? POP is a procedure-oriented programming language. This is also a good path to be enhancing your knowledge and everything. Here, but there are some drawbacks. Just because of that, we introduce the object-oriented programming. In procedure-related programming, the procedure of the program is based on that process and the sequence of that operation. Means the entire code has been written in a single main frame of line, which is used to be designed over there, and we working on a similar manner. There are the few languages we provided it like a Pascal and C, which is one of them. But there is one major drawback of that language is it is less secure as we compare with the object-oriented programming language. So the procedure-oriented programming is basically follow the entire process in a sequential manner. That is the entire code running in a particular same class. So one step needs to be wait for the other step until the previous one has to be completed. So that was not a very big issue. The big issue is whenever you find any kind of error, difficulty and the failure in that program, so you need to be redesign the entire program. So avoid this kind of collapse, this type of problems, we have introduced the object-oriented programming concept. So as we know, object programming concept basically focus on the object and the classes, and it is the requirement of the modern era where we working with different kind of modules. The modules are independent to designing the code. So whenever you face any kind of difficulty, issue, in the programming codes, you don't need to be changed the entire code. You can be focused only a particular that module so that you can rectify the error and it can easily be executed. So now the few important points, look at over here. The object-oriented programming language emphasizes the real-world objects and would be consumed that process. It provides more security and more functionality to your programs that give a good impact in your language, and it is more secure. So one of the example is Java, Python and C++. Moving to the next point. Now, here is the most important term for the object-oriented programming concept, where they ask you about the different kind of OOPS principles. Sometimes they call it as a methods and the functionality of that. Object-oriented programming consists the major features are abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance and polymorphism. These four basic features which is very required for the object-oriented programming concept. If any of the language follows all the concept, then it is said to be an object-oriented programming language. Although the C++ also follows the one of many features of the object-oriented, so it is partially we can say the C is also known as object-oriented programming language. So now we discuss with the very first topic, that is called abstraction. What is exactly abstraction? It means to presenting the essential features to the user and hiding the unnecessary background details of that program. So how you come to know that? If we talk about in the real world example, you must see the ATM machine, everywhere they are placed and you can easily visit it over there. Whatever you do in the ATM machine, you simply entered and insert your card. Whatever the machine has been required, they give you a message like your details, phone number, card and the PIN card. You simply enter, you choose your amount and then you withdraw that amount, or if you want to deposit, you deposited that amount. Okay, so that is a basic feature. So you must be thinking what is different in that, how we can say the abstraction is going on. So now, as you know, that ATM machine linked that your bank account with that machines. Whenever you do the transaction, you suddenly get a message from your bank account that how much amount is debited or how much amount is credited. So in this entire process, you only be concerned about your money if you're withdrawing your amount. You are not very much concerned how this process is linked with that. So this is called the only essential details, that what you required over there. That time you need money, that's why you visited the ATM. Otherwise, you can go bank, you can process, entire process, everything over there. So similarly, abstraction is one of the features where we only show the important details to the users and we hide unnecessary background detail. So we must ensure the abstraction is one of the best features of the object-oriented programming. Now moving further to the next one, that is encapsulation. Encapsulation is a process in which we binding the method function together as a single unit. Now, it's quite little difficult to remember the terms, how we are binding method function together. What do you think about what is exactly a function? Wherever we see these kind of topic which is not very much related with our real words, with difficulty we find up to learning those concepts. But there are some keywords are always there. We always remember in computer science, you always get a number whenever the keywords are there. So one of the keyword is binding, encapsulating, method and function and the object together as a single unit is called encapsulation. So if we connected with the encapsulation with the real world example, you must see in the capsule, the medical capsule over there, you see that there is covered with the wrappers and everything. So we just telling the example that you connect with that topic, like it contain some kind of solution inside it, and whenever you have it, you feel much better. That is because of the solution inside it, it gives you a relief and then you feel much better. Similarly, in encapsulation, there is the group of method and function which are dealing with the same kind of concept. We encapsulate, we wrap, we bind it together and give you the features of encapsulation. Similarly, in the program also required, sometimes we have to combining so many things together and make a one single package or one single thing to do. So that is we deal with encapsulation. Moving to the next one, that is inheritance. What is inheritance? Whenever we heard this point, what comes in your mind? How we inheriting the things, but how it implemented in Java? As you know, there is a concept of child class, base class, super class. So one thing you should remember, base class is also known as parent class, which is the main originating of the things. Here in this example, you can see that A is a base class. You can easily understand the A is a base class, and B, C, D are the derived classes. Means you can connect with the real world, like your father is the base class and the child and the siblings are the subclasses which inherits the property. So the child can inherit the property of their parents. If you being a student, if you are a student, you are a child, you must inherit the properties of your parents or your households. So make sure the inheritance is a process by which an object is acquired the property of other class. Other class means it should be there its base class or the existing class. All right. So the example of that the child class inherit the property of base class is similar as like you inherit the property of your own father. That is called inheritance. What is the concept of inheritance in Java? Sometimes we made so many different kind of classes and we need those classes in the other classes. So we make it the concept over here base class and the child class. Base class is also known as parent class and the child class are also known as subclass. So this is one of the important feature, and so many time it being asked in the board examination, what is inheritance? Now right now, as you know, the board has changed their concept and the pattern. They ask so many multiple choice question over there. So this is the one of the topic where you can get so many MCQs from it. So always remember the base class is the parent class and child class is the subclass. Now moving on to the next concept, polymorphism. Polymorphism is the one of the important feature of Java, where with the help of polymorphism we can implement function overloading. What is exactly function overloading? So before understanding that, we understand what is polymorphism. It means which perform the same kind of operation but in different classes. Like let's take one example of that. You must have a table in the house. There is a one table which is your study table where you simply do the studies. The other table, that is your dining table. That is also a table, but the task and the process to execute that table is quite little different. In the dining table, we used to have our dinner, lunch and whatever things you want to have. There was one more table, the student table, where you kept your things and doing the study over there in the classroom, and the teacher table. That is, all are the same, but the process and the working of that table is varying from the different in different places. Similarly, one example is given over here, that is a shape. As we understand what is exactly a shape over here, shape is the category of one of them and it must have the circle, area, rectangle, so it varies. So similarly, there is a same name of methods inside a single program, but their parameters and the signature should be different. That is the part of polymorphism. So just quickly revise all the concept that what are the initial object-oriented principles. There are the four basic principles. One is abstraction, where we are hiding unnecessary detail and shows only essential feature which is required to the user. Those are the abstraction. The best example is, one of the best example is ATM machine, which I told you. The other one is encapsulation, where we binding and wrapping function method together as a single unit. That is called encapsulation. An example of that encapsulation is capsule and the so many other things. Now next is inheritance. Inheritance is a process in which we wrapping a method function together as a single unit is called inheritance. Before starting the further topic, we must revise the previous thing which we have done it right now. The very first thing, what is exactly a programming? That is, which is used to perform a particular kind of task, and the thing is said to be a programming. And we need different kind of programming languages like low level, high level programming language. So we're working with object oriented programming language. What is object-oriented programming? Which act working on the module-based programming, different bases of classes and the method and the functions, which is called object-oriented programming language. Now, in the object-oriented programming language, we have a certain kind of principles and the methods. So, one of the method which we have already done, that is abstraction, hiding unnecessary details from the user and shows only essential background detail. It is said to be an example of one of the abstraction is ATM machine, where we can simply withdraw our amount by putting some interactive objects and the things which we provided to the machine, and we withdraw that things over here. The next topic is the next principle is encapsulation, where we wrapping up and binding method function together as a single unit. It's said to be encapsulation. Example of that, the capsule, which we generally take in during the time of treatment. The next is inheritance. Inheritance is a basic property where we acquiring the properties of its base class in its acquiring the property of its base class in its child class, or we call it subclass. And the last important principle, that is polymorphism, where one form can be performed a different task in the different places. Like you just see that the shape of area finding is quite little different for the different kind of areas are here. Like we have a circle area, we can find the triangle area, we can find the rectangle. In all three cases, we finding the area only, but the figures are completely different. Like one is triangle, one is rectangle, it can be vary. So now moving on to the most important and the further topic is that is called the classes and the objects. So now this term is the entirely purely based on the object-oriented programming. The entire object programming is based on class and the objects. So now first discuss with what is exactly a class. A class represents a group of objects and the same kind, objects of the same kind. Make sure they must have a same kind of features and same kinds of their desires, so we can club it together. That's why it make it as a class, and it wraps all the information as which we needed as an object is a single unit. So it is, we can say class is a blueprint as well. Blueprint means that is which containing all the information of objects together and forming a single unit. That is called class. Let us take a real world example. If we talk about your own classroom, why we call it class? Because the collection of the student. What kind of student? All class 9 students are sitting together. So that's why that make a class 9th only. If the all class 10 student together sitting together, then it is called class 10th student. So now this is the concept of class, where we combining objects together which have their same objective and the goal. So that is the same concept we following in the Java. So now the next topic is object. What is exactly an object? You must understand what is object. What object is an identifiable entity. Identifiable means which can be identified easily, which have three major characteristics. One is identity, the second one is behavior, and the last is state. So you must understand the object is like you can take any kind of object. Now let us suppose in my hand, what is this? This is a pen. If I simply say, so this is also object. How can you know that the identity of this object is its name? That name is to be their identity. So that is called the first features. Now the other feature, if we talk about other character, that is behavior. Behavior means what the object is doing, how the object is performing, how object is doing any kind of task. That is, so what is the behavior of this pen is to be write on the blackboard, and do perform the touch on and touch off can be done with this pen. That is the feature of this pen. That is called the which characteristics? Behavior characteristic. And other is the last is state. If it is on mode, then it is working, and if it is off mode, then it is not working. So this is the main features of any objects. So basic part of the object-oriented programming is object, because of the entire language is made up of with objects. So each objects have their own identity and own dignity, and they have been used for their different purpose and the task. So when the similar kind of objects are combined, they make it class, and the different classes used to perform a different kind of operations. So this is how about we understand what is exactly a class and what is exactly the objects over here. So now at the end, we have going to be quickly recap all the concept which we have done it today. That is, what is exactly a program, what are the programming languages, what are the types of programming languages we are having, and the further what is exactly a OOPS, and what is the difference between object-oriented programming and the procedure-oriented programming. And now the most important questions which being asked in the board examinations is exactly based on the OOPS concept. That is, what is abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. So, and the basic concept of the Java is the class and the collection of the objects. So now let's start just giving you a quick brief how we designing a program. We covered the entire coding and everything. Will start with a few next lecture, but here we just give you just complete, this is the quick look for that. Just simply you can use it. How can you be write the Java program, and how can you be design those programs with that? So now, before starting the program, you must have BlueJ in your system. All right, whatever the program I taught you over here, you must be practice in the BlueJ. So BlueJ is the software, one of them. So you must have any platform. Basically, it's prescribed in that ISC councils over there. So BlueJ you must have JDK in your device and the system. There are so many other web-based applications are there, or mobile-based application in which you can run. I'll just briefly taught you how we designing a program. So now we start with a class, with the class name we mention over here. Okay, so I'm just writing the class name with the board. That is class name. Then the scope of that class, that is your curly bracket. Now scope of the class is your curly brackets. Scope of the class is curly brackets. So always remember in Java, curly brackets, number of curly brackets and any kind of bracket we use it's known as separator. We discuss all these concepts in the topic of the where we discuss over there. Now, after opening the curly bracket, we'll give a method. You can design any number of method inside it. Like this is one of the method. So method itself have their scope, that is called functionality, where you're doing the task. Now this is, if we design the one more method in that, we can write it down and their functionality can be written inside it, or the function of that method can be written over here. Similarly, we can do many more program in this, many more methods you can design as you want. So at the end, the opening bracket and the closing bracket should be equal to each other. Okay, so this is the basic functioning of the program. So now what is exactly a method? Method is exactly tell you how the functionality is going to be performed. Like little method over here, you can say add two numbers. We can take add two numbers. So we pass two values over here. Because we're taking integer, that's why we're writing int. And the functionality of that, we need to be add both the numbers. So we take one more variable for this. We take it and a plus b. So this is how it is working over here, where we are designing a small codes and the program. This is the kind of structure we are doing over here. So now, belonging with this structure, you can write any new and fresh program with this that. So one side I'm writing the structure of the program. Structure means where the sample program. So one thing, if you're taking any kind of package or a predefined methods, so we'll take a package over here. What is exactly a package? Package is a collection of similar kind of classes which are already predefined in Java. So we can also create a package by ourselves, but here we are using a predefined, followed by the class, then the class name, after that we design a method. One main method must be there, that is called main method. So we'll write public static void main. This is a main method, and inside the functionality which just I told you right now, we perform over here, that is addition of two numbers, and this is predefined, any of that predefined, and then at the end we print the functionality which we doing over here, that is the addition of that two numbers. We simply print it over here. So now with this a very basic program, I'll just explain you how these programs can be helpful to telling you all that things. Now you can see at the end of this program you'll find the result. That result will be, what will be the final result? Here you'll get 10 plus 5, that is 15. But whenever you run this program, you simply get the output. So if somebody is seeing any kind of output behind it, he don't know how you do it, but the entire process of behind to getting this output, that is the features of abstraction which we have discussed. Now the encapsulation, where is encapsulate? As you can see, this is a main method which encapsulate all the data members together. Like what kind of data? Here we using integer, constant, values, method together. That is one of the part of that encapsulate. So function that is called encapsulating members. Now class, as you know, class is the collection of similar kind of object. This class is the complete collection of getting all the data members together and make it as possible to understand the concept behind it. So these are the important points, and these are the entire programming lecture will covered in the next few classes. So don't worry about that, what is exactly this public statics, no need to be worried. I just take a very little and the basic program here to give you the essence of the concept, how the concept is performing, how it is going to be done. So at the end of this class, we simply go through some important questions. You must note it down. The first question, what is class? This is the important one. The second is, what is object and its basic characteristics. Basic characteristics is required over here. The other is, point is OOPS principle. All four OOPS principle must be understood, and you must know how to be implemented in the program. And at last, difference between OOPS, object oriented programming language, and POP, that is procedure oriented programming language. So these are the basic concepts we must know and understand. For the further, we'll discuss few other concepts over here. For that, we'll continue in the next session. So thank you so much for watching this class.